Okay, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Goedemorgen iedereen. Shalom achalach. Salam alaikum. Konnichiwa from everywhere. Welcome to this MEA keynote where I'm extremely happy to be in front of you, where I'll be actually with Pekka Walkama and Karin Zingmark to lead this keynote. Just before we get started with the keynote, I'd like to actually give you a few insights about or keynote. So let's start with the fun stuff. First of all, what is Valo Fest? That's actually one of the major questions we always get. And Valo Fest is a free event for everyone, for friends, for family, for community, for partners, for customers. Everyone is welcome to assist and to learn about the latest experiences and innovations about the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. We have an incredible lineup of keynote speakers, excellent partners, customer stories, MVPs, all coming and sharing their insights about the M365 world. You will have the chance to ask Q&As after every session. So attend any session you want to learn and ask any question you have to the speakers. And lastly, we have an happy hour after each region. So Valo Fest is a 24-hour long-going event from Europe to NA to APAC, and each region has a happy hour. Please join us with the happy hour to talk with your peers, exchange about the issues you have, and learn from the best in the field. The agenda is live as well. You can always go to valointranet.com, Valo Fest 2020 join live, and you can see the links, the agenda, speakers, and you can easily join and attend any session you would have. Then common practices, always mute yourself. That's a good thing because we will have a bunch of people coming to the sessions, and please try to be muted and not disturb anyone in the session. Enable the camera only if you have a question, right? You will be maybe 200, 250 in the room, and if everyone opens the camera, there could be network latency. So a common practice is to enable the camera only if you have a question. We have a hashtag, the Valo Fest hashtag. Use it, share the love, share the Valo love, share the Microsoft love. If you have seen a great picture, a great roadmap, a thing that you want to share on the internet, Valo Fest hashtag is a place to be. And yes, recordings will be made available and sent to you via email after the event. Happy hour, join us. Please don't forget, it's extremely important for us because we play very hard, but we have to learn and share a beer as well very hard, right? So that being said, very quickly, a few housekeeping materials. I'm extremely happy to introduce you to Pekka Walkama, which is like the CEO of Valo Intranet, that will give you the introduction of what Valo is. Hey Valo, hey Pekka, how are you doing today? Maybe you can share your screen and I'll just give the floor to you. And there you go, you can unmute yourself and the place is yours.
Okay, very good. Thanks a lot, Gökhan. A big welcome from me as well to all of you, and really thanks for joining us at Valo Fest. As said, I'm Pekka Walkama. I'm the CEO at Valo, and Valo Fest is all about digital business and digital workday experiences. Those are the passion of all of us working at Valo. But before starting, I'll just take 2 minutes of your time, no more than that, to tell you who we are. You can find me by my name on Twitter or LinkedIn if you want to get in touch later on. So the vision and goal we have at Valo is to be the world's leading and most lovable digital workplace product suite on the Microsoft platform. And as of today, the Valo products consist of 6 different award-winning solutions on top of Office 365. Our packaged intranet, our teamwork for digital collaboration, our ideas for organization-wide innovation, our extranet product, our mobile for those field workers, as well as our Valo for Microsoft Teams. All of these are made for one single purpose, to boost the digital work of our customers. And Valo has won quite a lot of different awards over the last few years, so don't just take my word for it. Check out them and look into Valo for yourself. And to do that, well, first of all, we operate 24 hours a day, as we have employees, customers, and partners in all time zones. So if you want to start thinking about using Valo, our partners can help you all over the world. I think we already have the best partners, but we're always looking for new ones as well. And over the next 24 hours, you'll get the chance to see presentations also from many of them. At Valo Fest website, you can find all the information you need to start using Valo or becoming our partner. And that's it. As promised, only 2 minutes about the company arranging Valo Fest. And then, without further ado, let's move to the main agenda. So it is now my privilege to present our keynote speaker, an advisor, author, and a TEDx speaker, Karin Zingmark. Her topic is extremely interesting: leadership and communications in a connected world of work. Och så över till soliga Sverige. Varsågod, Karin.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. I am so pleased to be here to meet you all this morning, and we have an amazing lineup of speakers today, so lots of energy, lots of inspiration, and I am just super honored to be kicking this off with you guys. Let's see, I will share my screen with you so you can see my presentation. There we go. Okay, so it's Thursday morning and it's sunny in Stockholm in Sweden, and we're all about to go on vacation, I think, soon. And it's the best way to start the vacation, to get to meet all of you guys and talk about the stuff that I love the most, which is leadership and communication in a connected world of work. I have about 20 years of experience working in companies and organizations that have been highly affected by digitalization, thus change. So I spent quite a lot of years in the media industry. So I was working with pay TV, and as most of you know, that industry was challenged very early on from digitalization. So we had to see our business pretty much get cut through, thanks to technology, thanks to the internet. We went from having a safe, stable business with local competition, and suddenly we found ourselves fighting with giants like Netflix and HBO. And so I was fortunate enough to be on the company that actually decided to take this challenge head on. We decided to develop our own worst competitor. And we launched our worst competitor 2 years before global competition came into the Scandinavian market. That taught me so much about change, about how people act in change, and what it means to actually drive change that's not necessarily good for the business, because that is unfortunately real life for most of us. Digitalization is not always a good thing for business. We have to rethink our purpose. So I spent many years there, and then I moved on to Microsoft, where I headed up the CMO team in Sweden. And Microsoft was such an experience. It's, as you know, a huge company. And I learned so much in terms of leadership, because at Microsoft in Sweden, we were the first subsidiary to actually drop the traditional view of the office. So We already back in 2012, we introduced the activity-based office, and we introduced a thinking around letting people to work whenever they want, wherever they wanted, from the office or from a cafe or from the comfort of your home. So exactly that change that the rest of the world is going through now, thanks to the coronavirus, we did already back in 2012. And I learned a lot in terms of what does that mean when you want to drive change, when you want to have people join in on the change, when you want to succeed together with people and influence them in a change. It's really hard when you actually don't physically meet. So you need to do other things really well. And it's all about leadership, and it's all about communications. So we're going to talk about that today. About 4 years ago, I took the most challenging decision in my life, career-wise. I decided to leave the comfort of Microsoft, leave the comfort of being employed, and I started my own business. I was scared to death, but I'm so happy I did because I'm having a lot of fun. So today I am an advisor on comms and leadership in a connected world of work. I'm certified in the foundations of neuroleadership. That means the way our brain works, and with the knowledge of that, we can guide people through change easier. I was also nominated Speaker of the Year, and am one of the 100 most popular speakers right now in Sweden. So honored to be here. I also work with amazing organizations. I am on the board of director for 3 different organizations right now. And I had never planned to write books, but I was actually contacted by one of the largest publishers in Scandinavia, Liber, and they asked me if I wanted to write a book. So they followed me in social media for many years, and they thought I probably had something to say. And I did. So I wrote my first book. It came out a couple of years ago, and the second one came out just this spring. And my books are about driving change and the need for super communications in order to get people to join in on the change. So change, when we talk about change, most people say that they love change. They're like, yes, change is the best. I love change. The thing is, we only like change when we can actually influence what to change, when we're going to change it, how that change is going to look like. Then we like change. But we don't like change when people actually tell us, okay, listen, we have an organizational change, or we're going to do a new strategic initiative, we're launching new products. All of these things that we as employees actually are confronted with every day. That kind of change is a little bit more tricky to deal with. And when we are confronted with change that we haven't influenced on, we often feel threatened. We feel scared, worried, anxious. And when we feel threatened, we often have a really bad behavior coming along with that feeling. Because when we feel threatened, a lot of us react, maybe a little bit like this. So our dear friend Donald Trump gets to exemplify bad behavior. Bad behavior in the workforce is pretty common, especially in organizations that are heavily affected by change. And Christine Porath has actually done some research on what that cost is for companies when we allow this kind of bad behavior in the workplace. The bad behavior can be that you're interrupting people in meetings, you're not getting the right information, you're not even invited to the meeting, etc., etc. Someone takes credit for your work, the kind of really irritating things that happen in the work life today. It's really bad when we allow that, because we, it turns out, intentionally decrease our work effort when this kind of behavior is allowed in the workforce. We intentionally decrease the quality of our work, and this one is the worst. We lose so much time worrying about what actually happened there, and how am I going to avoid that happening again? How am I going to avoid that person, etc.? It's lots of energy that we just waste. It's just negative energy that we have to stop wasting, because we don't have time. We don't have time for this at all. And it actually shows the neuroleadership education that I did told me, amongst many other things, that when we feel excluded, when we feel that we're not actually a part of the group, we activate the same area in the brain that's activated when we feel and experience physical pain is activated when we feel excluded. So we're going to talk about this, and we're going to go through this model to try to reach the top of it. You all know this model. This is a traditional, super basic psychological model, probably the most used one ever. It's the Maslow hierarchy of needs. It's been criticized because people aren't logical. We don't move up in the ladder like this model, but it's a very good model to use because it's easy to see the kind of pieces in the puzzle that we need to lead people and to enable continuous innovation and continuous change without the kind of fears and anxieties that often arise through change. So this is the basic one. If we look in the bottom of this one, we obviously have the physiological stuff in place. We have food and water, and we have somewhere to stay. The second one, feeling safe, feeling secure. In the business world, this translates to high trust teams. Teams where people don't feel the anxiety and fears. People feel safe, feel included in the team, etc. They have a high level of trust. There's been quite a lot of research done on this topic, and the one that I love the most is research done by Paul J. Zak. And in his research, he measures the levels of oxytocin in the blood. When we release oxytocin, we feel safe, secure. And so in his research, he finds that teams and groups that have high level of trust, they experience less stress, they experience more energy at work, higher productivity, less sick leave, more engagement, more satisfaction in their lives, less burnouts, 40% less burnouts. It's crazy. And so he has identified 8 ways to manage for higher levels of trust. And I think I want you to go through these 8 levels of trust with you guys. And I want you to, while I do this, really think about how this works in your everyday life, in your work life. What are you good at? What do you need improving? Which challenges do you have in your organization in order to raise the levels of trust? Because this is the basics. If you have fears and anxieties in your organization, you're not going to be able to drive change. So recognizing excellence, just recognizing when people are doing a great job. Let me take the opportunity to recognize excellence for the Valo Fest team. The event team at Valo are amazing. We've had so much fun preparing for this speech. We've had challenges, but we've been laughing through them, and they're just the best bunch to work with. Great people. Inducing challenged stress, so letting people get goals that are challenging to reach. When you do that, you also say to people that I trust you. I believe that you can reach this target or this goal, and that's the kind of positive stress that we need. Also, no micromanagement. When we micromanage people, we tell people that we don't trust them. We just don't trust that they can do their job. And this is a challenge for many people that I meet right now, because we're stressed for time, we're pressed for time. So instead of letting people find their own ways to solve problems, we often tell them how to do it. But when we do, we also tell them we don't trust them to find that way themselves. And that really is devastating for trust. Enabling job crafting, so seeing the positive strengths in people and allowing for them to do the job that they are meant to do, instead of trying to fit people into organizations they're not meant to be in. And this one, obviously, we need to talk, share information broadly. As long as we do that, people feel safe and secure. You have to think like the press officer standing in the middle of the crisis. Inform, the media, the employees, everyone, even though you can't inform them, even though you don't have the answers, tell them you don't, because that makes people feel calm. Working really, really hard on building your relationships is key in order to drive change, because this is like this is what we need to have in place for to collaborate much better. You know that if you've had a really fun lunch together with a bunch of people and then you get a short email, you will always think good of the intention from that person writing the email, because you know that person. So the kind of misunderstandings that we often get when we're pressed for time, you can minimize them if we really spend time on getting to know each other. And obviously seeing people as both with a professional and a personal need for development. So right now, it's not the way it used to be that you go to work and then you log off and you go home and you're a totally different person. Private life and work life are being intertwined, and we need to see that as leaders. The last one is the best one, I think, because in a digital world where we have lots of competition coming on really, really fast, we need to open up and show vulnerability. We need to admit that we don't have all the answers to all the questions. So showing vulnerability, asking people for help, and admitting that you don't have all the answers is something that really, really works in terms of raising levels of trust. So I'm going to stop here for a second and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Thing is, when I am doing the talking, you guys, your brain will sort of shut off after a while if you don't stop to reflect. So please take some time to reflect on these 8. Which one do you love the most? Which one is your biggest challenge? Which one do you have to work on a little bit more in your work life today? And feel free to share your thoughts in the chat field, because chances are you will make some actual change in your life if you also communicate about it and share it to other people. Chances are much bigger that something will happen. So have a little think, and if you like, please share which one of these you want to do more of, which one of these you already do really well in your work life today. Okay, let's move on. Obviously, you can contact me and I'll share the links to this so you can read a little bit more about it and answer any questions you have. But now we actually looked at the first and the most important, biggest piece in the puzzle, which is building levels of trust in the organization. You have to have that in place, because if you don't, people are not going to want to be a part of change, and maybe they'll even actively work against what you're trying to change. The second step is about belonging and feeling like you're a part of the tribe, being together as a team. And let's start by looking at the challenges that we have in terms of communication today, because this is a lot about communication. I mean, this is the world we have today. We have lots of different platforms. We have lots of different tools to communicate, to share, to interact and socialize with each other, but also to collaborate and work together. And I'm sure that you all can relate to this picture of sort of being very deeply into your own personal network, even though you're sitting next to the ones you love the most. I have 2 kids. They are turning 13 and 15, and I love to just look at the way they interact and the way they learn how to navigate in the media landscape that we have today. They're superstars because they listen, they communicate with each other, and they are so trendy in terms of knowing what's hot and what's not, and when it's hot and when it's not. So I'm sure you guys had challenges a while ago with all these Fortnite dances that we had to learn. So a long time ago, when you put one kid from one part of the world and then one kid from another part of the world, they would play football. I hope they still do, but nowadays they do either Fortnite dances or this. When I popped off in your Google. Wait. When I popped off in your Go gave me just a little bit of la cha. So the emoji challenges from TikTok or any other kind of challenge that we get from TikTok is the kind of stuff that the kids are spending a lot of time on today, as I'm sure you know if you have kids in that age. And I was actually, before Corona, I was traveling in another country with my family, and we're sitting having dinner, and my kids are doing this kind of emoji challenges. And we looked over at the other table where there was a French family eating, and their kids were doing exactly the same one, and the parents were laughing because it's like, it's global and it goes so quickly, these trends that the kids are clinging on to. I'm talking to you about this because I want to share the fact that they're also little mini entrepreneurs. So another thing that's pretty hot around 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds right now are these nails, long nails. So this girl, her name is Liva, she's 15 years old. She started up a professional nail salon in the like they have a house on the outside of her house. She lives out in the country, but she starts this Instagram account, and my daughters found it straight away because you can do your nails really cheap at her place. And I love just how professional she is. She has customer pictures, she has free times, the price list, and it also says really clearly, listen, I'm 15 years old, I don't have an education to do this, and when you book a time to do your nails with me, you have to pay beforehand. She's super strict, super commercial, and she's only 15 years old, and she's really good at listening in to what's hot right now and then making something out of it. So I love being inspired by the kids. And I'm a little bit sad to see that us grown-ups, we tend to sit like this. We're like in a bubble, and we often make decisions based on historic facts, like sales figures or customer surveys or employee surveys. Then we make decisions out of that, and then we delegate communication to someone else to communicate. Often the communications department, obviously. And now we started using social media. We started to work with digital communications. Obviously, most of the companies out there are doing that. The problem is when companies do it, it becomes so boring because we delegate the most important thing, which is the dialogue. We delegate that to someone who often doesn't have authority to really listen into the feedback that's coming from the outside world and to drive change. So instead, it's someone who is reading from the pre-written Q&As and just answering the questions that someone else has decided, and it becomes boring. And we see that, we feel that, so we leave. So instead of this, we have to build communicative organizations because we are in a connected world with a very challenging, fragmented media landscape, and trust in packaged messages and traditional media is being reduced. So we need to communicate and build true relations and drive change through an open, transparent dialogue. And we're going to go through how to do that. So we started off with the most important piece in the puzzle, which is the high levels of trust. And the second part then is obviously to gather around a why and values that we really truly live by, values and a why that are our Bible in the organization. So visualizing that why, that is taking the old mission and the old vision that many of us have, and then making that into something that is super exciting, something that makes you want to wake up in the morning and really go to work to deliver on that why. And the values, they're often, unfortunately, really nice words that we come up on when we're on this kickoff with the leadership team. And then we tell our employees that these are our values. We have 5, 6, 7 values. And then we sort of continue to work the way we always did. The importance with values is really identifying which ones they are for your business and then making them come alive through action. So making decisions based on your values. Then it becomes real. Then it becomes a tool to gather your employees around and to really, really become inspired. This is a company that I think does it really well. IKEA has always been very clear on their why and their values. And I think it's because they've had this man who has really lived the values and the vision of IKEA for many, many, many years. The founder of IKEA, he makes it personal. So, and that's proven also through research that the human brain needs to connect with something human. And we can easily connect with a person rather than an anonymous brand. And now in the Corona crisis, I found that it was really interesting to see that companies that are truly value driven, like Scania, for example, they lived their values straight away in the Corona crisis. So in this case, they had to stop producing their trucks. And the first thing they did is allowing for their employees to help to produce ventilators in partnership with Getinge. And in their values, they have one very strong value on integrity and realizing that we have a social responsibility, striving to do the right things in the right way. Super cool to see. This is though the challenge with values. It's the challenge also with a why, is we often say nice words, but we allow for totally different actions. So I want to inspire you all to become the kind of fighters for your values internally in your organizations and challenge the actions that go against what you've said that you should do. So really take these two questions and think about them a little bit. Is the why in your organization clear to you, to your employees? And would you say that your business is value driven today? Yes or no? Have a little think about this, maybe share some thoughts in the chat if you want, because this is crucial in order to gather everyone around something so that you can enable a feeling of belonging, a feeling of love, being a part of a team. That is what makes people want to be a part of the change that you're driving. Now, going through all of this, obviously, we need really, really strong communications. And in the world that we live today with social media and the dialogues that are going on, it's not about producing some sort of nice message that we put lots of advertisement budget on and then pushing that out. Instead, we have to open up and to build relations and really delivering on the dialogue that everyone can see. So this is a definition of a communicative leader. I love this definition because it shows that a communicative leader of today is a leader that engages employees in dialogue, gives and seeks feedback, involves employees in decision making, and is perceived as open and transparent. And when I've written both my books, I've really been looking for leaders who do this and who really make use of digital and who make use of the social media landscape that we have today. And unfortunately, it's kind of hard to see that. I think it has a lot to do with fears and the feeling of being insecure when you open up and show yourself. So it's easier to delegate communication to the comms department and to sort of sit back and do it the way we always did. It's interesting to see in the Corona crisis that we're all going through how some leaders are really, really understanding this and making use of this. And I want to share an example of that. It's, of course, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern. When it was time for New Zealand to shut down, to go into lockdown, instead of producing the sort of very traditional, very fine, polished speech to the crowd that was sent through traditional TV, she sat down in her bedroom wearing her sort of homeware. She had just put her little daughter to bed, and she shares through a Facebook Live with everyone.
Evening, everyone. that I would jump online quickly and just check in with everyone, really, as we all prepare to hunker down for a few weeks.
And the amount of love that she gets when she shows her true self, when she's authentic, when she is sort of in her home environment, we can relate to her in a totally different way than we relate to someone sitting in a TV studio. It's so powerful, it's so strong, and she is receiving tons of love. She's showing that she's not the kind of untouchable leader standing on top of a pyramid somewhere. Instead, she is next to her people, driving change together. Also, you need to communicate with feelings nowadays.
Solicitando la prueba del coronavirus. Iros al carajo, cabrones. Iros al carajo. Y hay que ponerse así serio, porque es que si no, no parece que no os enteráis.
That was the Spanish emergency doctor trying to tell everyone in Spain to do not come into the hospitals. And he really sort of, through his passion for the message, he managed to reach so many people with that message. We talked earlier about the importance of recognizing excellence. And I have a friend, his name is Martin. He's the founder of an influencer marketing agency. And he is such a superstar in terms of doing just that. So what he does is, once in a while on LinkedIn, for everyone to see, he writes little love letters to his employees, in this case to his employee Siri. He writes, as you can see, almost a little novel to her, sharing why she's so important to the company, what he appreciates so much about her. And it's amazing to see the love that they are getting from also other employees. And he tells us that he has so many competitors trying to get a job at his company because they see that it's a nice place to work in. It looks like it's fun. And when we had the Corona crisis starting, he posted this really nice message about, let me help you to get a new job. If I worked with you before, I can recommend you. And I love just the comment that came from someone saying that kindness rocks and acts of kindness is contagious. And it really shows so much about you as a leader and your culture and your team when you take the time to do these kind of things on the platforms that everyone can see. So let me share with you some super simple tips when you want to become a more communicative leader. So what you want to do is you want to, just like for a brand, you need to, for yourself, think about who you are, what you stand for, what's your passion, what is your why. And then identify why you're doing these. What are your goals? Do you want to get closer to your employees? Do you want to build relations with stakeholders in your society? Maybe more relations with media, etc. What kind of goals do you have doing this? Because that enables for you to choose the platform. We can't be everywhere, so you have to choose the platform where you can reach your goals. And then build that profile and really think about the first question, because your descriptions and your photos need to align with who you are and what you stand for. And then comes the tough part, building relations, engaging in dialogue, really being generous with knowledge and taking a stand clearly in different questions that are relevant to your business and your community, and obviously measure success. The most important thing here, though, is being yourself. So not being like someone who is only talking in positive words about the company that I work for or the thing that I'm selling or whatever. You have to open up a little bit more because we want to get to know you, not a superficial part of you. We want to get to know the real you. So be prepared to share a little bit more than you normally would. That's what's interesting to us as humans. So let's take a quick little break to ask what you find is the biggest challenge when it comes to being communicative in your work life today. and which is the biggest opportunity for you if you would become a little bit more communicative. Try to think about this, try to do some reflections, and maybe even set some goals for yourself in terms of what you want to do more of moving on. Cool. We're going to move on to the final little piece in this puzzle. So I mentioned to you earlier that I learned a lot working at Microsoft in terms of leading teams and leading organizations through change when we don't meet each other necessarily. So I was heading up the CMO team at Microsoft, and this is what we needed to focus on. We needed to have all of these pieces in the puzzle in place, and the last one really being clear on which results we're striving for and how we measure and follow them up. It becomes really important. This was the team that I was heading up, the most amazing marketing department in the world. And we had huge changes to go through. As you know, if you are familiar with the industry, marketing is in many ways events. When you work with business to business and tech, you have a lot of events. So we decided, because marketing is so much more than that, and we decided we needed to transform the way we did marketing in Sweden at Microsoft at the time, to work more with modern tools, that is much more content, more search, more initiatives to become more business oriented and actually implement marketing automation. So we had a lot of those kinds of changes to drive, but we necessarily didn't sit next to each other in an office. We didn't meet on a regular basis. We had obviously the monthly and the weekly meetings, but they were always on Skype. So I realized that we have to work really hard on building relations together in this team so that these people will want to physically meet, because something happens when we meet physically. But I can't set that as a demand that they should be physically in the office. So instead, I wanted them to find the lust for that themselves. So once every month, we actually met and did something really fun, like playing paddle, or we would rent a cabin in the woods. We'd go and buy some food, and we'd cook dinner together and sleep over in the cabin. We'd do some workout. We did lots of different things. It doesn't have to cost that much, but it does so much for the team spirit. So doing that in combination with having clarity on the why and the values, and striving to drive the change that we set up to do, is really important. And what you need to have in place is obviously this last piece in the puzzle: clarity on goals, clarity on the follow-up. So we worked a lot with the SMART goals: specific, measurable, attractive, realistic, time-bound, and accepted. We worked on trying to have common goals instead of individual goals, because we wanted to work together as a team and improve collaborations. And they needed to be connected to the why and to the change ahead. We tried to remove the goals that hinder transformation. So we had lots of things that we did because we always did them back before. So stopping to do things that hinder the transformation was something that we had to focus on quite a lot as well. And it's always hard to stop doing things, because you never know if that specific thing was the one that was really, really good. So you have to take some risks. But also then being structured on the follow-up and really, really together as a team celebrate success. So I just want to share with you one thing that we had in place that was a part of the Swedish Microsoft organization that I was in then. And it's just the best way to have quarterly performance reviews instead of having them yearly, because things move so quickly, and you're often working with people who maybe in my team were younger, so they're moving a little bit faster than many of us. So making sure that we touch base with each other on a quarterly basis is so important. So we would go through the SMART objectives that we had. We'd go through, how did this quarter go? Which results did you achieve? And how could I have helped you to improve? Next quarter, what's the plan to reach the targets? How can I help you to do this? And this final one is really important. We actually set off time to talk about, what do you want to do in order to grow and develop as a person, and how can I help you, and how can I support you in that? So going back to the 8 tips of raising levels of trust, facilitating whole person growth is a really strong one that we had on a quarterly basis to do. This doesn't have to take much time. It's we obviously used the amazing tools that we had on hand at Microsoft, so we could prepare and share and save this in a good space in order to make it efficient and easy to do. It's not something that has to take much time. I think it would take even more time if you do this only once a year, because then you have so many things to tell each other. So doing it more often is much more effective. Let me leave you with a final little note. So when we work in this kind of distributed way, when we're connected, always on, working from different places, many of you guys are probably working in global organizations where you're sort of working in different time zones. Obviously, this can lead to stress. I am the first one to acknowledge that I was a victim of that when I was new at Microsoft. I was working way too much, and when you work way too much, you don't do a good job. So I was not a good leader, because I would do things very, very sort of quick, very spontaneous, and that's not always a good thing. So I had to stop myself, and the way that I did it was I actually physically distanced myself from technology. When I came home to our house, I would take my office, which was in my handbag, and put it in the hallway. And I would tell myself, I'm not allowed to touch that handbag because I'm taking time off now. So in the beginning, my kids would ask, why is mom sitting in the hallway in the house? Because I would go and I would cheat and do some work. So it takes a lot of discipline to distance yourself from technology, but I think it's important. I think we need it. And still today, I would never have my phone in my bedroom because I'm the kind of person who is really communicative and really connected, and it's not good for me. I need that space away from technology. So let's all act as role models. Take control of technology. In your teams, you need to talk about expectations. What are you expecting from each other in terms of answering emails? Maybe, as we did, we would text each other if it was an emergency. But if you've been working all weekend in order to not work on Monday, I can't ask you to check your emails. So then I would text you if it's an emergency. Being present as leaders and employees, having regular meetings and results-oriented leadership is a way to lower levels of digital stress as well. And you can absolutely take some time to educate yourself and your employees in order to prevent stress. So educating yourself in how to managing technology in a good way is great. And that is one of the things that I know you guys will be doing in the next hours at the Valo Fest, which is an amazing thing. So we've gone through this model. We've gone through everything from the bottom up in terms of raising levels of trust in organizations, in terms of having clarity on the why, clarity on your values, and really, really focusing on communication with the purpose of opening up, building relations, showing vulnerability, being your true self in your communication instead of delegating communication to someone who does something which is polished and pretty. Finally, making sure that you sort of put everything together so that you make sure that everyone is striving towards the same direction. To do that, you need to have clarity on the results and how you follow up on those results. That is, having clarity in a results-oriented leadership. I think these are the messages that I want to give you in order for you guys to be able to build brave teams that manage to drive continuous change in a world that is ever changing. Thank you so much for listening in. You can connect with me in any which way you like. And maybe, possibly, we have some comments or questions. Let's see. I will stop sharing my screen and have a look at Gökhan.
Yes, actually, we have a question from Ulrika, which says, what rules have you put in place to keep the right balance between keeping your personal life versus private, your kids, home, etc., and showing more of yourself?
That's a really, really good question, Ulrika. And that is a line that I have been balancing on for quite some time. Many, many years ago, I would divide, so I would use Facebook for my personal space, LinkedIn for my professional space, Twitter as well. But now when the channels are being more integrated, so LinkedIn is becoming more Facebook-ish, Facebook is becoming LinkedIn-ish, Instagram is not just a pictures platform anymore. That's all changing. So to answer your question, I think about it a lot. I don't post pictures of my kids unless they allow me. And before they could make that decision, I never did. So now they're preteens and teens, and they can make their own decisions if it's okay to be in mommy's channels or not. And I always ask them. In my Instagram sort of live, I share a little bit more sort of the everyday stuff that's happening. And in the channels where the content stays, I think a little bit more about what I want to say and how I want that to be perceived in the long run. I hope that answers your question.
I hope it as well. Thank you, Karin. Merci beaucoup. Hartelijk bedankt. Teşekkür ederim in any language. It was an amazing keynote. Thank you so much. And I really hope that people appreciated your keynote and learned a lot of stuff. So everyone, thanks for joining the keynote. Thanks for listening to Karin. Thanks for listening to Pekka. The keynote is done. We have 5 minutes before this regular sessions are beginning. So grab a coffee, take something to eat, and just jump into the solutions track and the experience track to go listen and see what our amazing speakers has to say to you. Thanks a lot and see you all very soon.